Hello everyone. Could you please confirm if you can hear me well and see my screen? Alright, so let's get started for the day. I'm sure we have not covered the topic on SSH and SCP service in a Linux system. So we'll go through these two topics first. So just like any other service in a Linux system, SSH, or you can call it as a secure shell, it is one of the important service which is enabled by default in a Linux system. In general, at the time of installation, if you remember, so it is only the SSH service which has firewall enabled by default. Okay, so other than SSH, rest of all the services would have firewall disabled. So when configuring other services, we have to explicitly write some rules to enable the firewall. That means in order to have the server and client interaction, we need to enable the firewall for rest of all the services except SSH. So coming to SSH, so SSH is secure shell. So SSH mainly provides a mechanism using which we can securely connect from one system to another system. We can securely copy files from one system to another system, vice versa. Okay, we can securely do a remote login from one system to another system. We can securely uh, execute commands remotely using SSH. That means you're present on host 1, okay, and you can run a command on host 2 and get the output directly on host 1 itself. So these are three important things about SSH. So connecting remotely in a secure way, copying files and directories, and then executing commands on the remote machine. Other than these three aspects, we would also look into uh, setting up of a passwordless SSH between two machines for the users. Okay, so we'll take one example of each and then we'll come back to this slide to go through the importance of SSH service. So before testing SSH service, it is very important that you have proper connectivity between the two instances. Okay, so make sure you have the host name configured, host name or the corresponding IP address, and so all those basics that we have covered in the beginning with respect to host name and the IP address. So ping, check the connectivity. I'm able to ping. If you're using a virtual machine like this, okay, then go to settings, network, choose bridged adapter. Again for this other one. So most of the time it is this bridge adapter setting that would help you with both the local connectivity Hello everyone, can you hear me now? Sorry, it was an issue from my side. Network got restarted. Okay, so what I did here is I did check the host name and the IP address, and I'm able to ping. So we are going to quickly check the SSH connectivity between the two instances. So here, if you observe, initially it was redvm2, that is the host, okay, redvm2.saranvm.com, but it has changed to Red Hat 6.7vm. So I'm no more in this particular instance. I have switched from this to the other instance. So for the people who have worked on remote desktop connection in Windows, so we connect from one instance to another remote instance. Okay, so basically keeping all the environment, the graphical environment in place, so you connect to the remote machine. So that is what RDC, remote desktop connection, RDC in Windows is. Okay, so in Linux, so usually what we do is we mainly use SSH, wherein you don't have all the graphical layer, but we just get the shell prompt back for the remote machine. So you are now in the remote machine. Okay, if I do exit, so the connection is closed. I'm back to the old machine. So SSH is all about connecting to a remote machine with proper credentials. Okay, once you're connected, you can start working on that particular instance, perform your job, come back to your original instance. Okay, so this all happens in a secure way. So another important thing here is when you're connecting to a different remote machine, you need to provide proper credentials. So if you do not provide credentials, the system will assume that the same user is present on the remote machine. The same user means so the user details using which you have logged into the machine. Now, what is this host name? redvm2. Who am I? I'm the root user. Okay. So if I do not provide credentials when doing SSH, the system will assume that the user on the remote machine is also root. Okay. So the root, since it is a common account across both the machines, so username is fine, but the password might differ in both the machines. So the root password for this machine will be different from the password from the other machine. So we need to provide the root password of the remote machine when connecting using SSH to the remote machine. Okay, so or you can say it like this. So SSH user at remote machine. Okay, if you press enter, so we need to provide user's password. Or take this example, or I'm doing like this. So it is asking me for user password for the IP address 125. So this is the other machine whose IP address is 125. Okay, and if you check if there is such user in this machine, there is no user, or do this. There is no such user. So you'll not be able to log in with that user credential. Control C. I've cancelled it. So other than root, what you can do is you need to create that user. Okay. So now I have created the user. Going back, now I can say all these commands are valid now. Okay. So you need to have the user credentials for the remote machine in order to connect. So now once you are connected, so it's almost like you're connecting to a physical machine. You can perform all the operations on the remote machine. So this is one. So this is about remote connectivity. Now we'll take another example. So this is regarding copying files from one machine to another machine. So again, where am I? So I hope you're observing the host name, right? So host name, and -i. Now let's take another example where you want to copy some files from one machine to another machine. Okay, so let's perform this activity as a different user. So when I want to copy files from one machine to another machine as a user called Saran, I need to ensure that either that user is present on the remote machine, or I'm aware of the credentials of a different user on the remote machine. Makes sense, right? So you should either have this user on the remote machine. So this user is present. So I can copy files with this user's credentials. This user and the user password should also be known. So it need not have to be the same on both the machines. So use this user's credentials and copy files. Or I am aware of a user called user now. So I can either use this user's credentials to copy the files from my machine, this machine to the other machine. So let's take some files. So I'm going to create a test directory and also test file. Okay, and let's go into this. So I have created a test file and some test directories. So SSH secure shell, SCP, is securely copying the files from one machine to another machine. SCP test file. Okay, so again it is similar to the copy command syntax. Okay, so what is the operation that you want to perform? SCP. SCP what? I want to SCP a file. SCP where? So I want to SCP it to a location on the network whose IP address is this colon. On that machine I want to copy it to this particular folder. Clear? So SCP, what do you want to do? SCP. SCP what? Test file. SCP where? So usually it is for copy command, it is a local location. So we say /temp/home xyz. That is how we provide the path. But this is a path in the network. So you mention the IP address of the system colon path in that machine's IP address. Okay. So other than these three parameters, so we are also aware that we need to provide the user credentials. So we need to say Saran at or some user at. That means I am aware of this particular user's credentials on the remote machine, because unless you don't know the user's credentials, you cannot copy into the remote machine. Okay, so now what happens? So the user on this machine, user Saran, will copy the file to the remote machine with the help of this user credentials. Okay, enter. See, it is asking for user credentials here. So user 123. Okay, it says permission denied. So we should check. So what we'll do is, let's go to the temp directory on the remote machine. Okay, so this is the remote machine. So there is already a file called test file, which is with the ownership of user Ramesh and group ownership Saran. Okay, and we are trying to copy it with the ownership of user. So either the only option left is it has to overwrite this file. Okay, and since it belongs to a different file, you remember the sticky bit feature that we have seen before. You cannot delete or modify other users' files, right? So that is the reason it is not allowing us. So what we will do is we'll simply delete this file on the remote machine as a root user. Now come back. Oops, again. Okay, we'll make it simple. I'm going to create another file. I'll make it test file 1. Still, okay, hang on. SCP. So this is the basic command that is successful. I have tried using the root user. Okay, so we'll verify this first. So the file is available. So what I did, I just copied using as a root user here, but it is expecting the root user of this remote host. Okay, so I provided the remote root user password. Now we'll take another example. So I have a directory, and maybe we will create a few more. So these are all files and subdirectories present. Okay. So the only difference here. So when doing SCP put as an individual file, you copy it normally, whereas if it is a folder or with a lot of directories or subdirectories, you need to recursively copy the files. SCP-R. So we have dir1. All the folders and the subdirectories are copied. Okay, so now We'll just try with the same user first. Recursively, we'll take the dir. Okay, perfect. So the user Saran is altogether denied access to the remote machine, okay, in terms of using scp command. Let's go to the remote machine now. So it is happening for this particular user. What we do is, let us try for a different user called Amish. Doesn't exist. So we switch to user 1. Okay, and we create a file called user1 and we use scp command. And we know that in the remote machine we have this account, user. Okay, you have not seen this message before, but whenever you want to copy a file for the first time or when you try to do SSH operation for the first time from one machine to another machine, so the system will try to create some metadata regarding the session that you're trying to create. Okay, it will store this information in one of the hidden files. Okay, so this is what it is. It will ask you only once, just say yes, and it is asking for user password. Perfect. Now what I'll do is, so all users other than the root user, they are being denied access to SSH. So it seems that the SSH service has been disabled for all the rest of the users in the system. So we will cross check that, like, so while going through the SSH service, how can we block users from SSHing from one machine to another machine, uh, or how to block a specific user from copying files to from one machine to another machine. So we will see that in some time. So other than these two, we'll look at two more features. One is how to run commands remotely on, that means the machine will not change. It's just that we will use the SSH command to run other commands on a remote machine. That's what we will check. Okay, another one is setting up passwordless SSH. So I hope how to do SSH and how to copy files using scp command is clear. So scp normal file, scp-r for copying a directory. Okay, so just coming back to our slide. So SSH mainly it makes the file transfer safe. So the importance of SSH, and we can also access the remote machine and execute commands on the remote machine. Okay, so it is based on the public key concept. That means we are going to generate some keys here, as I've mentioned, right? So we, under every user's home directory, okay, home server, so there is a file called .ssh. Okay, inside that there is this file called known_hosts. If you open this, so for the first time this user, he tries to connect to this IP address. So it has asked for storing this information. It would ask for yes or no. So once you say yes, it will store this key inside. So you can delete this, and we can switch to that user again, Saran, and try connecting to other machine. So it will ask you again whether it has to be. So it will maintain this information stating that this user has already connected before with valid credentials. So that's what it proves. Okay. If you say yes, so it has connected to the remote machine. Okay. Exit. Now exit. Check the same file again. So it has created that key for you. Okay. So similarly, other than this is for general SSH connectivity. So when we go for passwordless SSH, similarly what happens is it will create a key value pair. Okay, so we usually copy this key value pair to the remote machine. So when a user tries to connect from one machine to another machine, it will try to validate this key value pair on both the sides. Once it is validated, it will not ask for password anymore. It will just allow the user to log in from one system to another system. Or there are other alternative features, like we can make sure that other than the password, the system prompts me for a specific passphrase. So rather than giving the password, I configure the system in such a way that I can have a simple passphrase set, so that I'll provide the passphrase and log into the other system. Okay, so that is another way of setting passwordless SSH. So another one is executing commands on the remote machine. Excuse me. So like this, these are the advantages of SSH service. So quickly to look at the service. So this is, so let's see service SSH status. Okay, so SSH is the service. By default, it is enabled and it will be running in your system. So looking at this output itself, we can see that this is a CentOS 7 instance, right? So, and the command is still this. The command is still works in 7 also. Service SSH D status. So the package name is OpenSSH. Okay. So it will be installed by default, and if it is CentOS 7, you would see a lot of verbose information related to that package on the screen. Okay, and so it is enabled and is running. Okay, and with respect to SSH service, we do not make any changes with respect to the default configuration. So if you take etc SSH, so this is the configuration file. Okay, so by default, whatever features that are required in general, like SSH command, SCP command, these are available by default. We need not have to make any changes to the default configuration files with respect to SSH service for this particular course. So if you still go beyond this level, working on core administration, I mean on some advanced senior topics, on some advanced topics, then you might want to tweak any of these files. Okay, for now, as long as you're working on RHC certification or initial beginner or some experienced intermediate level, you don't need to make those changes. Okay, and then we have this config file. So maybe I'll just talk about one feature is etc sshd underscore config. Here just give me 1 second. So these are some of the features. It provides data encryption service while transferring the data, and then the sessions are encrypted. We can have passwordless SSH and also remote execution of the commands. So this we already know, chk config, how to enable it by default, how to check the service, how to start, restart, stop, all these are right. And sshd underscore config is the corresponding configuration file, important configuration file for SSH service. And as a part of this configuration file, we can have, 1 second, let me, so that is the only thing with respect to the service. So if you want, you can block the users. So you can restrict access to specific users, okay? So at the bottom of this file, you can say deny users space the username. So that way we can block a particular user from making use of SSH service. So that user is not allowed to make use of SSH service. So that is the only thing with SSH. In fact, uh, other than SSH service, there are files, there are other ways of blocking users from making use of these services. So one of the service is, so let's not go into what the service is, okay? So we have this file called host.allow. So inside this file, we can mention the name of the service. Say for example, sshd colon for a particular host. Then users are not allowed to SSH to that particular host. In fact, allow is to allow the users. So that is the default behavior of the system. Okay. So there is another file called hosts.deny. So if you mention a specific service here in this file, it is like creating an explicit rule. By default, everyone is allowed, but if you mention anything here, so that rule will be implemented in the system explicitly. Okay, so it is one of the TCP wrapper service that is available in a Linux system. So it comes under that particular category. So hosts.allow, host.deny. So we have cron.deny file as well, right? So where we can restrict the users from making use of cron. So similarly, so cron.deny here. So at an individual service level, we can restrict the users, and in general also we can restrict the users. Service level, you might have the corresponding configuration file like cron.deny or SSH configuration file, inside which you can mention or specify the user. Whereas with respect to the generic way of blocking a service or user is hosts.deny file. So hosts.allow is similar to the default functionality, that is to allow the users to make use of the services. So using hosts.deny file, there are different ways, like we can restrict users, we can restrict individual users, we can restrict a total users that belong to an IP address, we can restrict users at a sub network level. Okay, we can perform all those things, and it is applicable for all the services. You can use it for SSH service or FTP service, for cron service. Name the service and you just mention it inside the hosts.deny file. So that is like uh, a bigger picture on how we can uh, restrict the users and the corresponding services. So coming back, now we'll quickly check how to perform SCP operation, secure copy. So first of all, we'll take a user. Okay, I'm going to add a new user in the system, user 5. Password user 5. I'm going to SSH. First of all, switch as done. SSH 192.168.1.130, and this user is present on this machine, which is 125. So I need to check the other instance as well. So this user is not present. So we need to create the user on the other side as well. Okay, same user on both the sides. Now try connecting to the other user. Okay, let's do one thing. Since the root user is working fine, let's finish this exercise first using the root user. So the system is allowing me to connect as a root user. Okay, it is asking for a password. Now I came back, exit. So in order to set up a passwordless SSH, so SSH, there is a command called SSH hyphen keygen. Okay, enter. So this command SSH hyphen keygen is going to generate a key pair. Okay, so generating public private RSA key pair. So it says enter file in which to save the key root.ssh. So this is the default path. So I'm just saying enter. So save it in the default path. Passphrase. So as I've said, you can either have a passwordless SSH, or instead of password, if you type some passphrase here, it will consider that. So when logging to a remote machine, you need to give the passphrase as an input. So I'm just keeping an empty passphrase. Enter. Again, enter. So it has generated this files. So under root.ssh, so you can see these are the files id underscore rsa, id underscore rsa.pub. These two files are generated. Another one is known hosts that we have seen before. Okay, so ssh underscore keygen, so that is the key generator. Now we need to copy these files to the same user account on the remote machine. Okay, we need not have to do it manually. For that, again we have another command called ssh-copy id. Okay, we just have to use this command ssh-copy id, and where do you want to copy? To the remote machine where that user is present, where we want to set up a passwordless SSH. Now if you read, it says now try logging into the machine with SSH and check in this file to make sure we haven't added extra keys that you weren't expecting. It did not prompt for the password. So setting up of passwordless SSH is just 3 steps. Create using SSH key generator those keys, copy them to the remote machine, don't manually copy, use SSH copy ID command. Third step, just connect and see if it is working or not. So it is as simple as it is. Once I set up, if you want to connect just by giving SSH, it's just like as simple as switching from one folder to another folder. Okay, so the same steps need to be followed for every user. Whatever I have done as a root, so these things can be done as a non-root user, but maybe when with respect to some feature I have disabled or something, I will check that and I will let you know why it was blocking the system. So is it clear on how to set up, how to do SSH, how to do SCP, how to set up passwordless SSH from one machine to another machine? So these 3 topics, are you clear with these 3? Okay, just give me 1 minute. Alright everyone, so here I ran two commands. So first is to check the current host name. It is Red Hat 6. Okay, IP address is 125. So I'm trying to run command on a remote machine using SSH. So I did SSH space IP address. So till here it is the same, whatever we do using SSH. In single quotes, mention the command or provide the script as an input. It's not just commands, but you can also execute scripts remotely. Okay, so if you provide a script, it will execute it on the remote machine and give you the output. So I just ran a command. So it says see the remote machine details, and these are the remote machine information df-h. And so let's try some simple operations. So these are the contents of slash temp. Let's check what is there. These are the files which are there on the remote machine. You can also execute comma separated uh, multiple commands. So here host name is this, who is root user, and then contents of the temp. So all three commands are executed on the remote machine. Okay, or say we have some script. Okay, let's create one. Okay, and host name and who am I, and try some other operation like checking the memory stats. Okay, it's a basic script that I'm trying to run, and we need to give execute permission. Let's test it by running on the current machine. It's running successfully. Now give that as an argument to the remote machine. Alright, maybe that script part also. Let me check and get back. But as you have seen the way we have run the commands remotely, similarly we will be passing the script as well. So which there is some problem with my system, I'll check and I'll show that single option. Okay. So the script execution is pending for SSH topic. That's the only thing. So any questions so far other than this execution of the script? It's just that we have to pass one additional argument. So that's the problem. I need to check on that. So other than that, any other questions with SSH topic? Alright, then I'm planning to wind up the session today a little early. So we'll just stick to 1 hour session today. From the next class, we'll continue as usual for 1.5 hours. Well, if you have any questions, I can help you with your queries. Well, another important thing is, so I'll be on holiday for a few days. Okay, so I will hopefully the sessions would again start from the next week. So I will also inform the team regarding this, regarding the dates on when the session would start again. It's going to be a few days, 4 to 5 days. So in the meanwhile, you can go through the topics that we have covered so far, practice them well, and be ready for the rest of the advanced topics. Okay. So if you don't have any other questions for the day, then I would like to wind up the session now.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, sir. Could we please get the slides? We didn't yet receive the slides.
Okay. Let me check with the team. Uh, this should be. I'll check with the team. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. So see you again a few days. I'll provide all those details to you. You should be getting those details on when we get started in the next week. Okay. Thank you so much for attending the session. See you next week. Have a good one. Bye.